The year is 2022, and we're in our third year of the global pandemic. To say that it's been difficult is an understatement. We live in a constant state of tension and turmoil. It's only natural for one to seek comfort from their hobbies. For me, I've always been a video game fan, gamer, whatever you want to call it. I grew up playing JRPGs and fighting games with a hint of your Devil May Cries, but a genre that I never really cared much for was the first person shooter. You see, I grew up during the military sim era of FPS games, and it just wasn't my cup of tea. However, on a whim early 2 years ago, I bought a month of Xbox Game Pass, and as I scrolled through the list of games, I noticed a title that a close friend of mine had been a huge fan of, Doom 2016. I didn't know much about Doom, its history, nor the impact the 1993 original had on the video game industry. However, with a lack of a more appealing option at the time, I decided to install it and give it a try. I was floored. Doom 2016's gameplay made me feel like a kid all over again. I didn't know what I was missing out on. I loved it so much that it was the first game I bought for my PC I built in April 2 years ago. And as time has gone on, and with the amount of free time an unemployed person has, I had the freedom to explore not only the series but also the retro FPS subgenre as a whole. These games definitely have been something I look forward to as we survive the bio curse that one can catch buying a loaf of bread. I'll be honest though, and a bit personal. These past couple months have been especially tough for me. You see, I've been hunting for a work from home job recently as I live with relatives that are high risk. And I wouldn't exactly be able to live with myself if I knew they got sick because of me. And it's not exactly great to be the quote unquote broke friend. My days have consisted of waking up, going to the bathroom, eating breakfast, and applying for jobs over the internet. As you can imagine, I'm not the only person going through this. The work from home market is more than likely saturated right now, and whenever I did get a reply, it was either a rejection or someone trying to get personal information out of me. I did end up getting hired for one job though, and I was very excited. It seemed like it was the end to my employment troubles I've been going through recently. However, I ended up having to resign a week and 1 day into employment. There is a lot I could go into about this job, however, that would end up being its own video, so I will summarize it with this email I got. Needless to say, I felt stupid that I dared to get my hopes up about finding employment. So, when it was all said and done and I had resigned, I decided to disconnect from the internet and take the first steps to making this video. I recorded a playthrough of Doom 64, half because I was frustrated with my ultimately failed search for employment, and half because I needed to feel some sense of control with a video game that feels familiar to me. Doom 64 has been my refuge during these difficult times. I've been struggling to put my finger on the reason this game is so comforting for me. Ultimately, though, I feel it's more of a mix of multiple aspects with the game. The game has a tone that instills a sense of dread, even with the game's combat being similar to the first two Doom installments. The environments of the game start off as abandoned and run-down science labs, and as you progress through the game, you find yourself lost in hell as you fight your way through resurrected demons the Doom guy has already killed in the first two games. The second half of the game is reminiscent of Gothic architecture with skyboxes comprised of literal hellfire. You might even catch a glimpse of the remains of whatever poor soul was being tortured before you arrived. The game's progression is more puzzle-oriented than previous Doom installments. You'll find yourself flipping a switch and backtracking throughout most of your level to find a newly opened passageway. It almost feels like hell itself is a sentient being and is actively trying to keep you trapped inside of it. And the final piece of the puzzle, which is the one I feel is the most important, is the original soundtrack by Aubrey Hodges. Though, I feel it would be more accurate to call it a soundscape than a soundtrack, as the music serves more to make the player feel like the situation is hopeless, that they're going to be stuck wandering the afterlife for eternity. Whether I'm right or wrong in calling it a soundscape is irrelevant though. I imagine that Mr. Hodges wanted to convey these feelings of despair to the player, and he did so immaculately by creating a droning and heavy painting of sound using an Ibanez guitar, a cello, and some crying babies. There is a subtle implication that also leaves much to the imagination when one stops to listen. Are the demons torturing actual children, or is hell playing tricks with your mind, performing a sort of psychological warfare with the player? These sorts of mind games remind me of the way the demon Pazuzu emotionally and verbally lashes out at Father Damien Karras in the 1973 horror classic The Exorcist. Pazuzu speaks through its possessed victim Regan, using Damien's recently deceased mother to anger him and to cause him to harm the 12-year-old he's trying to save. Demons in media are almost always portrayed as tricksters and deceivers, wreaking havoc through more subtle and underhanded tactics than we tend to see in the Doom franchise. So, for the game to make you wonder what's really happening behind walls is already uncharacteristically cunning of these demons. Though, I suppose it shouldn't be too surprising, as the whole plot of the game is that the Mother Demon revived every single one that's been slain by the Doom guy in previous installments, putting him back in square one. The psychological toll of knowing that all his work thus far has been for nothing eventually causes our protagonist to make the decision to stay in hell to ensure that no more demons are able to leave their realm. Doom 64 serves as a transitional period from just a marine that survived the initial demonic invasion to almost a force of nature with a double-barreled shotgun. Doom 64's Doom guy is a grim and exhausted man. He has seen his homeworld be ravaged by infernal invaders, and he has seen his pet rabbit Daisy's head be separated from her body. And he has seen the culprits of all this slaughter come back to life as if he never resisted in the first place. All of these factors culminate into a game that makes one point. and it's in the back of the box from the physical copy one can buy. To hell with you. The phrase can be given two meanings. The first one is Doomguy himself being sent to hell in both a literal and metaphorical sense. You go to literal hell in the second half of the game, and the suffering Doomguy endures can be described as a form of hell itself. The second meaning is the resistance one has towards adversity. Doomguy, instead of giving into despair, decided to pick up his shotgun and fire back at the demons. Instead of giving up, he decided to kill every single demon all over again. That does not mean I'm gonna kill every single person that didn't reply to my job applications. Jesus Christ, why would you ever come to that conclusion? It just means that the only thing we can all do during these turbulent times is to simply keep trying. I don't think it's an understatement to say that we live in hellish times. I want to elaborate on that, as there's nothing I can possibly say about the biocurse that hasn't already been said. But I feel that we can all take a lesson from Doomguy, and that lesson is to keep fighting, so that we may one day see the sunlight again. It's probably silly to find inspiration to keep moving forward in a couple decade old video game, but frankly, at this point, I'll take any bit of positivity and comfort I can get.